Hello everyone, this is Andrew from Crown Academy of English, and today I'm going to be doing a vocabulary lesson, and I'm going to be explaining two words to you. I'm going to be explaining the word borrow and the verb lend, because these words are similar in meaning, but in other ways they are very different as well, and they often cause confusion. So let's get started. So let's start with a picture which shows the meaning of the words. First of all, both of these words mean, well, the verb lend, it means to give something to somebody for a limited time. So you're going to, for example, if somebody needs a pen and they do not have a pen, you give them a pen just for a limited time. They will give you back the pen later. So we say you are lending a pen. And the person who is receiving the pen, we say that person is borrowing the pen. So he is receiving the pen, he is taking the pen, but he will give it back later. So there is the concept of time, that this is temporary. So it's different to giving somebody a pen forever, and it's different for this person. It's not the same as this person taking the pen. So this person is not keeping the pen. So I'm sure you understand, I'm sure you have the same word in your languages as well. Okay, so the person who is doing the giving, we say that person is lending the object, and the person who is receiving, he is borrowing the object. Let's look at the word lend in a bit more detail. So Sarah is lending money to Mark. Sarah is lending money to Mark. So you can see the structure of the sentence is we lend something to somebody. So the to is important. So we lend an object, something, to somebody else. So that is the structure of this sentence. Sarah is lending something, which is the money, to Mark. And we can also say Sarah is lending Mark some money. The meaning of these two sentences is the same. It's exactly the same meaning, but two different structures, two different ways of using the word lend. And this one is lend somebody something. So after the word lend, if we put the person immediately after the verb lend, then we do not need the word to. We just immediately say the object afterwards. So lending Mark some money. We do not say Sarah is lending to Mark some money. When we say it this way, we do not need to say the word to. And if we want to use the word lend in a question, then this is how we would do it. So the question is, can you lend me €5? And again, this is using the structure of the second one. Can you lend me? Me is the somebody, followed by something, the object, what you are wanting to borrow. Okay, so because it's a question, he's using the word lend because Sarah is doing the lending. Now let's look at the word borrow. Mark on the right here, Mark is borrowing money from Sarah. So the person who is receiving the object, we say he's borrowing the object from the person, from somebody. So when we want to use the verb borrow, we say borrow something from somebody. The word from is important. Okay? And for the verb borrow, that is the only way that we can use the verb. There is no second way of using the word. That is the only way that we use it. Okay? So this is wrong. We cannot say, Mark cannot ask the other person to say, he cannot say, can you borrow me €5? Because Sarah isn't the person borrowing, she is the person who is lending the money to Mark. Okay. So Mark could say, what would be correct here is if Mark said, can I borrow €5? That would be correct. So Mark should say here, either can you lend me €5? Or can I borrow €5? Or he could say, can I borrow €5 from you, if he wants to specify the person that he is borrowing the money from. So he should either say, can I borrow €5? Or can I borrow €5 from you? But he cannot say, can you borrow me €5? This is a very common mistake, even by English people. A lot of English-speaking people make this mistake. And that is why we are doing this lesson, to show you the difference between borrow and lend. So borrow is the person receiving the object, and lend is the person giving the object. The past tense. So how do we say borrow and lend in the past tense? Well, borrow is very easy. It's a regular verb. So we just add ed to the end of the verb. So borrow becomes borrowed. So we would say, I borrowed, you borrowed, he borrowed, we borrowed, you plural borrowed, they borrowed. So this is just standard regular verb. But the word lend is irregular. So lend in the past tense becomes lent with a letter T at the end. So I lent, you lent, he lent, we lent, you plural lent, and they lent. Okay, so that is the end of the lesson, and we are now going to do some exercises. Okay, so I'm now going to test your understanding of the difference between lend and borrow. So, exercises. So, we have a photograph. Okay, so this is David on the left-hand side, and he is giving a pen to Jane. Jane needs a pen. Jane is receiving a pen from David. And the exercise is to, using the words that we have just learned, is describe what is happening. So first of all, give me a sentence of this situation. First of all, using the word borrow, and then using the word lend. Okay, so I'll give you a few seconds. If you need a bit more time, then you can pause the video, and I'll give you 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds to find the answer. So if you need longer than 10 seconds, just pause the video. Okay, so are you ready? The answers are, so using the word borrow, so question 1, we would say Jane is borrowing a pen from David. So we borrow something from somebody. Jane is borrowing a pen from David. And question 2, using the word lend. Well, we have two choices. There are two ways of using the word lend. We can either say David is lending a pen to Jane, so lending something to somebody, or David is lending Jane a pen. So David is lending somebody something. Okay, so that's the answer. Next question, next exercise. So it's the same exercise. So again, describe what is happening using the word borrow and using the word lend. So you have 10 seconds. Okay, are you ready? So the answers are, first of all, borrow. So David is borrowing a mobile phone from Jane. So David, because we can see from the arrow, we can see now that David is the person receiving the mobile phone. So we say David is borrowing a mobile phone from Jane. And for lending, Jane is lending a mobile phone to David. Or Jane is lending David a mobile phone. So in England we say mobile phone in England or in Great Britain, or in Europe. Most European countries will say mobile phone. In American English you will often hear cell phone. Cell phone, cell, which is spelled C-E-L-L. So if you hear the word cell phone, that is American English for a mobile phone. So a similar exercise, slightly different this time, because I want you to tell me what happened yesterday. So in the past tense, I want you to tell me, to describe this situation, something that happened yesterday. And again, using the word borrow, and then using the word lend. So 10 seconds. Okay, so using the word borrow, David, excuse me, David borrowed a book from Jane. So the past tense. So we add ed to the end of borrow. And the rest of the sentence has the same structure, borrowed something from somebody. And for the verb lend, Jane lent a book to David. Or Jane lent David a book. And lend, as we saw earlier, is an irregular verb. The past tense, the past participle is L-E-N-T. So we don't say lended. You must not say lended. Lended is wrong. We say lent, L-E-N-T. And the last question, the last exercise is I'm going to give you 3 sentences and only one of them is correct. I want you to tell me which of the 3 sentences is correct. So, which of these 3 sentences is right and which 2 are wrong? So you have the choice between Jane is borrowing a pen to David, or David is borrowing a pen to Jane, or David is lending Jane a pen. So I'll give you 15 seconds for this. This is slightly longer, so I'll give you 15 seconds, or you can just pause the video if you need longer than that. Okay, so I'm going to give you the answers now. So it is the last sentence which is correct. So David is lending Jane a pen. So lending somebody something. Let's look at why the first one is wrong. Well, the first one is wrong because, well, it is correct. Jane is borrowing a pen, but we should say borrowing a pen from David. So if this word was from, then it would be correct. But we do not say to if we're borrowing something. We borrow something from somebody. So that is why this one is wrong. And the second one, David is borrowing a pen to Jane. Well, no, that is wrong. David is not borrowing something. He is lending a pen to Jane. So David is lending a pen to Jane would be correct. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson. Thank you very much for watching, for listening. If you enjoyed the lesson and you're not yet a subscriber, then please click right here on the screen. You can click here and you can subscribe to my channel. If you like the video, then please click on like. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below, and I will answer all questions or any questions or comments. I will answer everyone. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. This is Andrew from Crown Academy of English. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.